Hi, my name is Neb Kamus Sen Atumri, and this is the ninth installation for Jesus found in Egypt, his so-called crucifixion. After Yeshua received assurance while in the second heaven that he would not taste the pain of death, he descended back to the gardener's shed. When one transcends and returns, he always appears at the same location where he was originally. Yeshua was assured of his deliverance and was now ready to face what was to come. Alyun El answered his prayers, unaware that he now looked like Yeshua. Judas went in search of Yeshua. In his search, he saw a few of the disciples asleep in the garden and drew near to awaken them because he wanted to know the whereabouts of Yeshua. His questioning confused the disciples because he looked and sounded like Yeshua, Jesus, for he too had been divinely transfigured to look exactly like Yeshua. With Judas stood a band of men sent by the Sanhedrins, bearing lanterns, torches, and weapons to arrest Yeshua. Remember, they did not know what Yeshua looked like, for they only heard rumors of him. If they did, there would be no reason for the kiss. The soldiers sent from the Roman officials were a group who had pledged their loyalty to Yeshua. There were also among them Judahites and Pharisees who were also secret disciples because they bore witness to his teachings and the countless miracles he performed. For he had healed the head of the Sanhedrin's dying child. For it is recorded, when Yeshua entered Capernaum, a Roman officer met him and begged for help. Sir, my servant is sick in bed at home, unable to move, and suffering greatly. I will go and make him well, Jesus said. Oh, no, sir, answered the officer. I do not deserve to have you come to my house. Just give the order, and my servant will get well. I too am a man under the authority of superior officers, and I have soldiers under me. I order this one, go, and he goes, and I order that one, come, and he comes. And I order my slave to do this, and he does it. When Jesus heard this, he was surprised, and said to the people following him, I tell you, I have never found anyone in Israel with faith like this. I assure you that many will come from the east and the west and sit down with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob at the feast in the kingdom of heaven. But who should be in heaven, or who should be in the kingdom, will be thrown out into the darkness, where they will cry and grind their teeth. Then Jesus said to the officer, go home, and what you believe will be done for you. And the officer's servant was healed that very moment. It is no coincidence that his secret disciples were present for the supposed arrest of their master Yeshua. The Roman and religious authorities of Jerusalem did not know what Yeshua looked like because he and his disciples just arrived there from Bethany the day before. Their only concern was to arrest Yeshua because he performed miracles and was considered by the majority to be a sorcerer and a false prophet who blasphemed the name of Yahuwah and broke the Sabbath. The few soldiers that the authorities sent to arrest Yeshua were depending on Judas to identify Yeshua. It was dark to see. Lanterns are not at all like streetlights. They give off very little light. They must be positioned near the face to be effective. After Judas's questioning of the disciples, Yeshua knowing all things that should come upon him, he knew he wouldn't die. So he stopped running and went forth in search of his disciples. Yeshua's face was brightened with a very bright light as an indication of his ascension to the heavens. As he drew near the spot where the disciples were previously, Judas and the soldiers noticed him coming and approached him. Yeshua said unto them, Whom seek ye? The soldiers answered, Jesus of Nazareth. Yeshua then said, I am he. As soon as he said this, those soldiers closest to him stepped back in fear, and they turned to run away. They awkwardly collided into the rest of the men and thus fell to the ground, dropping their clubs and swords and torches. Once again Yeshua asked, Whom seek ye? The soldiers who were laying on the ground answered, Yeshua of Nazareth. Yeshua then said, I have told you that I am he. If therefore you seek me, let these go their way. Yeshua was requesting that his disciples be free to go. At this point, Judas and the soldiers returned to their feet, and Judas immediately ran up to Jesus and said, Peace be upon you, and he kissed him. And Yeshua said, Be quick about it, my friend. So they jumped to their feet with the intention of arresting him. In fear of the impending arrest and in defense of Yeshua, his disciple Simon Peter drew his sword and cut off the ear of Malchus, the high priest's servant. Yeshua, by permission of Alun El, picked up Malchus's ear and replaced it. The high priest was already a secret disciple of Yeshua, and after this miracle, Malchus also was converted. Yeshua instructed Peter to put away his sword because he had been assured and strengthened by the Most High. Once Yeshua had done this, everyone in the garden realized that he was the prophesied Messiah and became his followers. During the Last Supper, Yeshua told his disciples that one from amongst them would betray him. Yet he never exposed his name because he knew that the disciples would have killed Judas on the spot. But now the disciples knew that Judas was the traitor. All of the soldiers turned to Judas because they no longer wanted to arrest Yeshua. His divinity was confirmed through his actions, and Yeshua had the appearance of a gardener and knew Judas had been transformed to resemble him, and thus if brought in front of the authorities, there would be no question as to whether they had apprehended the right man. Yeshua fled towards the gardener's shed, and at time the disciples fled also. While running, one of the soldiers grabbed hold of Yeshua's robe, cloth he had draped around him, and he, continuing to run, left the robe behind and fled naked into the gardener's shed. Yeshua remained in the gardener's shed for 3 days and did not make himself public, cloaking himself in the gardener's clothes. As the soldiers, who were really Yeshua's secret disciples, walked Judas off to prison, he was protesting his innocence. He believed that he was right and answered the Sanhedrin sarcastically and sometimes evasively. Because of Judas's obstinate attitude, the high priest and the guards literally beat Judas Iscariot into confessing that he was the ruler of the Judahites. The following day, the high priest presented Judas to Pontius Pilate, who could find no fault in him in spite of what the chief priests and the elders accused him of doing. Pilate's wife was told in a dream that the man they were persecuting was a just man. Pilate did not want to have anything with the death of this just man. Thus he literally washed his hands of the situation, Pilate sent Judas, who they thought was Yeshua, to Herod Antipas, whose jurisdiction was Galilee, Yeshua's hometown. A superstitious people are the Judahites. They have a faith that they have borrowed from the idol worshippers of other lands, that at the end of every year they heap all their sins upon the head of some man set apart to bear their sins. The man becomes a scapegoat for the multitudes, and they believe that when they drive him forth into the wilds or into foreign lands, they are released from sins. So every spring, before the feast, they choose a prisoner from the prisons of the land, and by a form of their own, they feign with pleasure would make him bear their sins away. Amongst the prisoners in Jerusalem were 3 men who were the leaders of a vile, seditious hand, who were engaged in thefts, murders, and rapings, and had been sentenced to be crucified. Barabbas and Josiah were among the men who were to die, and Barabbas was rich and had bought of the priests the boon to be the scapegoat for the people at the coming feast, and he was anxiously waiting for his hour to come. Now, Pilate thought to turn this superstition to account to save Yeshua, and so he went before the Judahites and said, "You men of Israel, according to my custom, I will release to you today a prisoner who shall bear your sins away. This man you drive into the wilds or in foreign lands, and you have asked me to release Barabbas, who has been proven guilty of the murder of a score of men. Now hear me, men. Let Jesus be released, and let Barabbas pay his debt upon the cross. Then you can send this Yeshua to the wilds and hear no more of him." At what the ruler said, the people were enraged, and they began to plot to tear the Roman palace down and to drive into exile Pilate and his household and his guards. When Pilate was assured that civil war would follow if he heeded not to the wishes of the mob, he took a bowl of water, and in the presence of the multitude, he washed his hands and said, "This man whom you accuse is the Son of the Most High, and I proclaim my innocence. If you would shed his blood is on your hands and not mine." And then the Judahites exclaimed, and let his blood be on our hands and our children's hands, and on our children's hands. And Pilate trembled like a leaf in fear. Barabbas he released, and as Yeshua stood forth before the mob, the ruler said, "Behold your ruler, and would you put to death your ruler?" The Judahites replied, "He is no ruler. We have no ruler but great Tiberius." Now Pilate would not give consent that Romans should put their hands in blood of innocents, and so the chief priests and the Pharisees took counsel what to do with Yeshua. Caiaphas has said, "We cannot crucify this man. He must be stoned and nothing more." And then the robbers said, "Make haste, let him be stoned." And then they led him forth towards the hill beyond the city's gates. They rushed upon him, smote him with their hands, they spit on him, stoned him, and he fell to the ground. And one man, a man of Anion, stood forth and said, "Isaiah said, He shall be bruised for our transgressions, and by his stripes we shall be healed. As Judas laid all bruised and mangled on the ground, our high priest called out, Stay, stay, you men. Behold, the guards of Herod come, and they will crucify this man. And there, beside the city's gates, they found Barabbas' cross. And then the frenzied mob cried out, Let him be crucified. Caiaphas and the other ruling Judahites came forth and gave consent. And they lifted Judas, whom they thought to be Yashua, from the ground at the point of their swords, and they drove him on. They mocked him, dressed him in a robe of purple, and gowned him with a woven wreath of thorns. Then, laughing him to scorn, they hailed him the ruler of the Judahites. The idea was to mock him and shame him who they thought was the Redeemer of Israel. When Judas was told to carry his cross, his father, Simon Iscariot, having compassion for his son, asked to carry it for him, but was denied. Judas was then led to a place called Golgotha, skull place, because the rock formation resembled a skull. They placed his body on the cross, positioning his already weary arms on the horizontal log. Tireless by their drive towards totally destroying and disgracing who they thought was the Savior, they posted above his head, This is Jesus, ruler of Judea. The account of Judas's crucifixion was related by his supposed disciples, yet everything that the disciples wrote about their teacher Yashua after the incident in the Garden of Gethsemane for the hearsay and supposition written after the fact. Yeshua stayed in hiding for 3 days after the fight in the garden. The Essenes who assisted Yeshua after he was betrayed to be killed directed the bewildered souls to Galilee, for they would find Yeshua alive and well. As they rushed away from the grave, they bumped into Yeshua himself, and he told them to seek out his disciples and tell them to meet in the city of Galilee. It was also the Essenes who helped him get out of the immediate area. This was all a part of the plot. Remember, Yeshua had many secret disciples. Thus ends today's video. We hope you have learned something from this video, and we urge you to share this video and to subscribe to the only channel where you will learn true ancient Egyptian mysteries. No more lies, no more guesswork. So share, subscribe, click on the like button below, and see you at the next video.